Celebrating 30 years of joyfulness. Good evening and welcome to News Night. We're live on Joy 99.7 FM, Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, myjoyonline.com. We're live across all 16 regions tonight. Were you hired to work in any public service or government institution after December 7, 2024? Gather round because I have news for you. The Chief of Staff has ordered the revocation of all such appointments and recruitments in a matter of 1 week. Stay with me. I'll give you details of that. Also, police on manhunt for thugs who disrupted the Council of State elections in the Ashanti region in an election that has been fraught with chaos, withdrawals and postponements. We have details as a former Council of State member dismisses calls for the abolishment of the advisory body.
And even those who were talking about scrapping the council, I kept warning them that the thousands of positions that the president appoints, it is not possible for one person to know people to such an extent.
We have details of that and work diligently to ensure my promises for the first 120 days in office are fulfilled, the words of President John Mahama. He holds an inaugural meeting with a 19-member task force mandated to implement them.
So all of you are supposed to focus on your sectors and work so that we achieve all the targets that we set ourselves in the 120-day plan. The Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs is the chair and leading that effort. So you have to work closely with her so that we can make sure that we are faithful to the mandate that the people of Ghana gave us.
We'll get to hear from some members of this committee, and tonight anti-corruption campaigners intensify calls for the passage of the Conduct of Public Officers Bill and establishment of a specialized anti-corruption court as the public perception indicates corruption has worsened over the past year after 4 years of stagnation.
We want to see experiences and action.
So yes, COPO is important. It needs some modification to capture all the things we are concerned about, and specialized fast track, what I call them.
In business, unionized transport operators deny reports of push for increase in fares.
And in sports, Kumasi Ashanti vows never to resume participation in the Ghana Premier League until requests for enhanced security measures at league centres are adhered to by the GFA.
We have details of that, and I'll take you to Parliament, where minority there is fighting suspension of implementation of Roads Authority Act, demanding action from government.
An illegal attempt by the ministry to suspend an act which has been passed by Parliament. If the ministry has any issue with the act, the best remedy or the procedure they have to take is to come to the House.
We have details of the explanation from the Ministry of Roads and Highways on significant unrest caused by the implementation of this act. And then later, Speaker of Parliament to organize prayers in the Chamber of Parliament to exercise spirit of disorder among MPs following recent chaos at Appointments Committee.
I thank the organizers and I grant them the permission that the next prayer meeting should be held on the floor of Parliament.
I'll tell you all about it. That's and more here on News Night. You want to join me with your thoughts and comments via WhatsApp is 055-1111997. You can hit us also on all social media platforms with a hashtag Newsnight. I am MFA Apo. Let's settle for details now. And this is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. Let's digging now. And if you were hired in any public service or government institution after December 7, 2024, I told you earlier, I bet you've gathered round now because I have news for you. The Chief of Staff has ordered the revocation of all such appointments and recruitment in a matter of 1 week. Well, we've cited a memo and we're still getting confirmation of this particular memo being circulated to all heads of government institutions, and hopefully we'll get to speak to the government spokesperson on information shortly. He's a state, Minister of State in charge of information, and he will join us shortly on this. So the memo that we've seen, which is signed by the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, consistent with government pronouncement in relation to near end of tenure appointments and recruitment, I wish to bring to your attention that all appointments and recruitments made in the public services of Ghana after to 7 December 2024 are not in compliance with established good governance practices and principles. Accordingly, all heads of government institutions are hereby requested to take the necessary steps to annul any such appointment or recruitment and submit a comprehensive report on the actions taken to this office by 17 February 2025. And it ends by saying your cooperation in this matter is highly appreciated, and thankfully Felix Kwachiofosu joins us on the line. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. Can you please give us some confirmation as to this particular memo we've cited so far, signed by the Chief of Staff, Julius Debra?
Yes, it is happening.
So what exactly is it hoping to cure? Can you tell us?
Well, if you recall that, in fact, you spoke to me on many occasions in the heat of the transition. At the very first meeting of the meeting, the NDC side had cause to raise concern about the information we are receiving, to the effect that many government departments, ministries, and agencies were engaged in what we refer to at the time as last-minute recruitment, or if you like, near end-of-term recruitments. What was striking about these recruitments was the sheer number, and also the fact that critical steps in the recruitment process were bypassed. We had information, for instance, that there were some people who had been recruited who did not even apply. Others did not go through any interview process. Others did not go through medical examination, which is a requirement in some places. And others yet received backdated appointment letters, which was meant to mislead people into believing that the appointments were made much earlier than they actually were. Now, having stumbled on this information, we reached the government side of the transition team and sought explanation. We also requested that they put these recruitments on hold and allow the incoming government to determine the vacancies, the requirements thereof, and how many of such people could be employed, bearing in mind the effect that it will have on our fiscal position as a government, especially because of the very serious economic challenges that we face. Now, this our request was rebuffed. The government of the day remained intransigent. They insisted that they had the power to do so, despite the obvious irregularities that the processes were fraught with. So, if you recall that on 17 December 2024, I issued a statement in my capacity as the spokesperson of the transition team for the NDC, in which I stated the position of the NDC side of the transition team, which was that if these recruitments did not stop, we will be left with no option than to reverse them when eventually we take power. And so, having been in power, we have looked into the matter and found that our suspicions were actually true, and that many of these recruitments were done without recourse to due process. And they have been done in a manner that seeks to undermine the fiscal position and create dislocations within the budget. And so the Chief of Staff has sent word to all these ministries, departments, and agencies to reverse these recruitments, pending the use of due process to do any future recruitments that might be.
But I'm wondering, how many recruitments are we looking at in terms of figures, and how many persons?
They ran into the thousands. And you recall that in our various engagements during the transition process, we noticed that there were agencies that on their own were recruiting hundreds of people through very irregular processes. So the numbers are quite huge.
So as it stands now, so you're saying that thousands of persons are affected when it comes to this particular revocation?
Thousands of persons have been recruited irregularly and through processes that could best be described as the exhibition of bad faith on the part of the previous government.
So the question then remains as to, will these positions remain vacant, or it will be filled by your own persons as you go through the legal recruitment process, as you may want to put it?
I don't know what you mean by our own person. What there is Ghanaians who, on the basis of specific qualifications and skill sets, may be periodically employed into the public sector.
But these are Ghanaians that have already been recruited into these positions,
though.
Yeah.
But being Ghanaian is not sufficient reason to use irregular processes to get employment. if you are Ghanaian and you do things contrary to law, your being Ghanaian will not absolve you of sanctions. So at the appropriate time, if government determines that it's necessary to do further recruitment, it will be done. But due process will be used, and no Ghanaian will be precluded from participating on account of political affiliation or something. In fact, even those whose appointments have been revoked would have the opportunity to go through proper processes to be recruited. To the extent that they meet the requirements that are laid down and go through the proper processes, there will be no difficulty with engaging them.
But how about issues of maybe possible legal cases or legal action that may be taken against the government? Because there are some who say that they are duly qualified, they've gone through the processes, and they were recruited legally, some will say.
We are fortified in the knowledge that the right thing is being done.
Okay. Well, we are grateful, and these are matters that we'll keep looking at. And that's Felix Kwatiofosu, who is Minister of State Government Communication, thankfully giving us some confirmation to that particular memo that we've cited that's been sent to government institutions for the revocation of such recruitment to public service and government institutions after December 7. Of course, during the transition period, he's had cause to raise concerns about these recruitments that we've been talking about, which he says runs into the thousands. But let's bring in a labor expert, Mr. Austin Game. We are grateful for your time here on Newsnight. I bet these are issues that comes up every now and then as you've witnessed transitions in this country. Is this any different from what we've witnessed previously?
Well, this appears to be on the higher side, but it's not entirely. This is an African status quo syndrome that appears to be in the system, Ghana no exception, and so it's not surprising in its entirety.
But considering that these recruitments, even though government says they didn't have to do it at the time that it was done, some will say that these are persons that have been recruited legally in spite of the timing of this particular recruitment. What then happens? Are we not exposing ourselves to legal actions, labor concerns, amongst others that may come up, you'd say?
Well, it may look like that, but it's not real. There are several hiccups along the line. I have checked carefully because I know we'll come to this stage. And it does appear a lot of things have been done haphazardly. And so it's not in its entirety legal per se.
Okay.
There may be some genuine, one or two genuine ones, but majority of them are politically initiated. They are Ghanaians. If the government, the outgoing or the outgone government were to be mindful of the consequences, they should have, during the transitional period, engaged with the incoming government's transitional team to have some understanding and appreciation of the reasoning behind the thing. Unfortunately, they didn't do that well. Now, let me put it in context. Generally, the civil and public services have got manpower ceilings beyond which you cannot go. And if you want to go and break that bank, then you must go through the HR system by applying through the system and giving justification why you have to open that window of opportunity. They didn't do all that. Eventually, they also have to go to the Public Services Commission kind of recruitment process, which they didn't do in proper way. And also remember, I mean, this is the straw that will break the back of the camel. These people are currently supposed to be on some kind of probation. So when you are on probation, you cannot be described as a worker or employee, as we normally want to call it here, of the undertaking of the organization until you complete your probationary process and you have gone through the validation and you are given confirmation. Then you can be called bona fide employee or worker of that organization.
Well,
in the absence of that, you are just navigating through the muddy waters.
Well, technically, they've done just about a month, but really, so there's no option available to these thousands of persons. They just have to pack up and go home.
Unless somebody wants to be mischievous, there is no legal boundary that they can. There's nothing. If employment relationship is not servitude, you are not under any compulsion to work with somebody at all costs, especially when the of government, not from government to government, but from another government to another party that is coming into power. I think that it's not been done well, and they have to learn their lessons from it.
Okay, we're indeed grateful for your input as always. Austin Games, a labour expert. Earlier, we also heard from Minister of State Government Communication, Felix Kwachiofusu, there, giving us confirmation to that memo that we've cited, that's signed by the Chief of Staff, Julius Deborah, to heads of government institutions. It's revocation of appointments and recruitment made after December 7, 2024. What are your thoughts? What are your comments? You can send them via WhatsApp. It's 055 1111 997. Now let's check on the Council of State elections that were held today. And those are sounds of chaos earlier in the Ashanti region and also part of the Greater Accra region. And the Ghana Police Service, as we have it now, are on a hunt for thugs who disrupted the Council of State elections in the Ashanti region in an election that has been fraught with chaos, withdrawals and postponement. Well, voting had just concluded and counting was set to begin until unknown thugs stormed the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council where the election was being held, while disrupting the counting process, and all the ballots were destroyed by the said thugs. The Electoral Commission officials present were compelled to flee the scene as a result. Well, the police has since begun that hunt for the thugs, and my colleague Michael Ashali joins me in studio with details of that statement. Let's talk about the police statement, Michael.
Well, MFR, quite short, but it goes straight to the point. It says that the Ghana Police Service has launched a manhunt for a group of thugs who stormed the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council and disrupted today's Council of State elections in Kumasi. The police are currently reviewing all available footage to identify and arrest the perpetrators and bring them to justice. And then before, that's how it ends.
Okay, that's a brief statement from the Ghana Police Service. Let me take you to where the action all unfolded. And Nanaya Ojima witnessed it. Is our Ashanti Regional Correspondent, Love FM's Nanaya Ojima was there for us. Nanaya, how did it happen? Give us a blow-by-blow account.
So from early in the morning, these people I met at the entrance of the EC, the Regional Coordinating Council. The police at that time were checking accreditation before people get access to the area. These people had a confrontation with the police. According to the police, they had no right to be there. They had no accreditation. For that matter, the police was restraining them from getting access to the voting center. So after that, some of us, the media and other people, had access to the area. The people were still left outside. Within that area, after 2 hours, when the election had we've gone through the process and we're waiting for the last delegate to cast his ballot. That was when I cited these men once again within the perimeter. I cannot confirm how they got access to the perimeter, but they had come inside and they had even gone to greet the former chairman for the National Democratic Congress, Yao Bimpe, who was part of those contesting the election, and also the current chairman of the NDC, Nana Kwesi. They had greeted him, and they've all gone round to have handshake with people that they knew. It was at the time of the sorting of the ballots, that was when I saw these young men come in again, and at this time they overpowered the police, who had formed a barricade around the counting area. They went straight to the EC officials who were there counting the ballots and toppled over the table on which they were conducting the business. Also, these people took some ballot materials, broke them into pieces, and took some papers. Some of them, the papers that I saw flying around, were not some printed ballot papers and other materials that belongs to the EC. They destroyed some of them. and just few moments later, they had noticed that some of the EC officials had ballot papers that they were taking away. Some of them went straight to where some of the EC officials were being taken, and they could get hold of some of their materials and destroy them once again. It was at this moment when they had finished their business there. That was when they were leaving the premises. The police were also there. About more than 100 policemen were present at the location, and these policemen ensured that some of the people, the EC officials, were safe. But unfortunately, some media people were hurt, or they were beaten by some of these people who stormed the area and caused confusion or chaos in the Regional Coordinating Council today.
Okay, so now we know that the police are on a hunt for these thugs, though. But has there been a rescheduled date for the election there?
Not yet. We are yet to hear from the Electoral Commission. But there are some of the assembly members who believe that from the sorting that was done, they, according to them, there was some sort of counting there. And according to them, Nanan Kansa Bodwa had won the election. We cannot confirm that because from what our cameras captured and from what we saw, we didn't see counting stats. All that we saw was the EC sorting the materials or the papers for that had been thumb-printed. But the EC is yet to come out with an official communication whether they have the papers intact or the papers have been destroyed, or whether the election will be rescheduled.
Okay, that's my colleague Nanaya Ojima there giving us updates on the situation, and you can understand why I've had to spend a lot of time with him there because of the situation and that police statement also on the matter there. But back here in the Greater Accra region, Nene Drolo Bosu obtained the first emerged winner in that election after beating 5 candidates, including former Greater Accra Regional Minister Nilaye Afoteagbo. But that election too was for a brief period marked by chaos. So these are sounds from that election earlier today, and Collins Frimpong witnessed it all, and he's safe and sound. Joins me in studio. Collins, what really happened?
Right, so actually 2 different cases occurred at the polling center. The first one started right after 11:50 when the delegates started trooping into the polling center, because even though election had begun at 7 a.m., nobody had cast their votes at that particular time from 7 a.m. to 11:50. Some of the aspirants were suspecting that one of the candidates may have camped the delegates and given them some of the items when we spoke to them live on air. So that was what happened. So at the time that one of the aspirants who finally withdrew from the race, that's Musa Ziad, he was trying to come in to the polling center with his executives, and the executives were not having accreditation, so the police would not allow them to come in. So that's where the first confusion occurred, and the Greater Accra Regional Minister was also caught in the midst of that particular chaos. So she had to use the exit entrance, which wasn't initially open for anyone. And at that particular time too, some people also felt like that since the place is an exit route, the Greater Accra Regional Minister should not be allowed to use that particular place. So it was an interesting scene, but the police increased their numbers, their presence there, and they were able to ensure that calm prevailed. But after balloting and everything was done and counting was ongoing, another chaos happened again. And if you've seen the footages, if you go on our social media platforms, you are going to see a lot of them where some of the police officials and some of the delegates were falling down. We really don't know what really happened, but I believe that one of the candidates' supporters felt that they were losing, so they had to do something to disrupt the proceedings. But because of the number of the police personnel there, they were able to ensure that peace prevailed again. But after that, the local governance minister was present, Ahmed Ibrahim was there, and he spoke on the violence. He felt that this is a normal thing that happens in an election.
All we needed was to make sure they get a rep for Greater Accra, to be able to constitute the Council of State, for the president to go ahead and get the power to proceed with forming his government. That was the mandate given to us, and that is exactly what has been delivered. I'm so happy with the process. I'm happy with the the conclusion. Whatever has happened, I'm so happy with it. So far, so good. Elections, losing election is not an easy thing. No. I've lost an election before. If you lose, if care is not taken, somebody went to the polling venue with his vehicle. When he lost, he forgot that he brought a vehicle. He was going home. And they had to call him. Oh, Honorable, you came with a car. The car is here. Before he came for the car. So once elections is taking place and somebody has lost, it's not easy to lose an election. If you don't act, your supporters can do anything.
That's a local government minister, Ahmed Ibrahim, there interacting with my colleague Collins from Pong. In other parts of the country, Paramount Chief of Yeji Traditional Council emerged winner in the Bono East Regional Council of State elections, while a 32-year-old gold dealer, Maxwell Boache, won the Western Region Council of State election. Former NDC Eastern Regional Women's Organizer, Evelyn Kurang, also won the elections in the Eastern Regional Capital, or in the Eastern Region. Well, former NDC running mate in the 2004 presidential elections, Alhaji Mohamed Mumuni, has also won the Council of State elections in the Northern Region. But the elections in the Northeast Region has been rescheduled to the 13th of February after two candidates had the same number of votes. Well, Ilyas Utanko monitored the situation, joins us on the line. So who are these candidates that had equal numbers, and how prepared are they for round 2 on 13th February?
Well, after the election, the regional minister said everything was on course and that they were ready to hold the elections on the 13th of this month. In fact, the election in the Northeast region was very brief and fast. By 9:54, the election has come to an end. And as you mentioned, 6 candidates, of course, and 2 candidates have 6-6, which is the total number of votes cast. And so there was no clear winner, which forced authorities to reschedule this particular election.
Okay, so that's the situation in the Northeast region, and that's my colleague Ilyas Utanko there giving us updates on this situation. Meanwhile, former Council of State member Samuel Kujeto has dismissed calls for the abolishment of the Council of State, saying it still plays an important role in the country's democratic dispensation. He's been speaking on the Pulse on the Joy News channel.
Talking about scrapping the council, I kept warning them that the thousands of positions that the president appoints, it is not possible for one person to know people to such an extent as to be putting them into certain positions. He hasn't got the machinery for it. So it is in the interest of governance, good governance, that those things were set up. And I'm sure that we can try and reform it and do it well for the interest of the country and for the benefit of the citizens. Yes, I'm saying that appointment were sent to us. Sometimes we go to CVs and the rest. We find out that sometimes there is errors in the CV that have been put there. Sometimes there's a woman to be appointed, but sometimes you find out a man who is there. We write back to them and say, no, this is not in accordance with the law. So for every appointment, we want to make sure that it goes in accordance with the law. If it is not, we refer it back to the presidency to correct. All right. We've done that many times.
That's Samuel Okujeto there speaking to Elton Brobe. Lawyer Samuel Okujeto speaking to Elton Brobe on the Pulse on the Joy News channel. Still believes that the Council of State has not outlived its usefulness and that it should still be in place. Well, President John Mahama has urged members of his 120-day social contract task force to work diligently to ensure that his promises for the first 120 days in office are fulfilled. Speaking at the inaugural meeting of the task force, he stated that the majority of its members, who are ministers, were included because many of the promises fall directly under their mandate. In the run-up to the election, President Mahama made several commitments that he pledged to fulfill within his first 120 days in office. All these include scrapping nuisance taxes such as the e-levy, the betting tax, and others.
The findings of this report make for sober reading. They reveal the scale of financial leakages that have caused. Of course, several of these things are sectoral, and so it was not possible to conduct this meeting before the ministers of the various sectors had been vetted and sworn in. And so now that you've been sworn in, of course, some background work has been taking place quietly. And now that you've been sworn in, this meeting is meant to focus sectorally on the things that fall within your sectors. And that's why you've been choosing. Many of those issues are within the sectors that you are ministers of, so that we can hone in and make sure that we achieve them on targets. Some are 90 days, some for somewhere 14 days, assemble a full cabinet within 14 days. We achieved that. And then somehow within 90 days. Others necessarily must go with some things. For instance, the removal of some taxes and rationalization of taxes can only be in the budget, because you need to do revenue measures and put those tax instruments before Parliament. So all of you are supposed to focus on your sectors and work so that we achieve all the targets that we set ourselves in the 120-day plan. The Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs is the chair and leading that effort. So you have to work closely with her so that we can make sure that we are faithful to the mandate that the people of Ghana gave us. And we'll now discuss the nitty-gritty and look at where we have reached. Some of the things like the National Economic Dialogue, the Planning Committee is working on. The Constitutional Review, we've set up the committee, and so that work is happening. The Minister of Education, who was amongst the earliest to be sworn in, has already moved quite fast with the issue of the National Educational Review. And so for those of you who were sworn in later, look into your sector ministries and the promises that we made, and then work as quickly as possible with the Senior Presidential Advisor on Governmental Affairs to be able to achieve those targets we've set ourselves. So that's the purpose of this meeting.
That's President John Mahama earlier at the Jubilee House, and giving us some updates on what exactly that task force is expected to do when it comes to the execution of the 120-day social contract. And the countdown is on. It's time for business. George Wiafe is here with the very latest. George, what's up?
Well,
days around the corner. Do you have a gift for me?
Of course, you have a special place in my heart, and therefore, when it comes to Val's Day, definitely you would be recognized on a day to express and show love to very lovely people like you.
It's okay, you for now. Let's do business.
Well, coming up, unionized transport operators deny reports of a push for increase in transport fares. A following meeting with the sector minister and banking consultant, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, wants more to be done to sustain the city's recent recovery against the US dollar. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery, your number one stop shop for all your office essentials, Synthus tanks and Pepsodent herbal and charcoal. You're welcome back to business on Newsnight. Now, unionized transport operators have denied reports that they are pushing for an increase in fares. Now, it followed an earlier disclosure by the Transport Minister Joseph Bukayanikpe of a meeting today to discuss their concerns. There is more in the following report.
So,
according to the transport operators, the meeting with the sector minister today was more of welcoming him as well as update him on industry developments. The unionized operators also used the meeting to explore ways that government can assist the industry and deal with some of the challenges facing the sector. The operators, which include the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, also rejected reports that they are trying to use today's meeting to push for an increase in transport fares. They have told Joy Business that the current increment in prices of petroleum products over the past 1 month does not warrant an increase in transport fares. The operators, however, did not rule out getting back to the transport minister for fresh discussions if conditions in the coming weeks should warrant an increase in fares.
And that is a Business Desk report. Now, banking lecturer Dr. Benjamin Amwa is pushing for measures that would help sustain the city's recent recovery. Fresh data picked up from the commercial bank show that the city's depreciation against the dollar has slowed significantly over the past weeks. Industry watchers are linking it to improved dollar support from the Bank of Ghana and inflows from offshore investors. Dr. Amwa argues that more needs to be done to ensure that we don't suffer the same challenges that hit the city in every first quarter of each year.
Absolutely, it is, because if you go back to the data and look at November 11 to December 12, the city appreciated on a daily basis. How that happened, we need to maybe look at it again. Then after elections, the city started, wobbling a bit. And we are seeing some resurgence in terms of strength. So definitely, something may have happened between 11th of November to about 12th December. We need to maybe go and look at it. And then if we can replicate that, and it will not cost us that much, we should use that as a short-term approach to managing the Ghana cedi, in addition to the long-term approach to dealing with the Ghana cedi, which we know is more structural. But in the short term, we can look at what we have been doing, especially between November and December last year. And then if we can use it.
Dr. Benjamin Amwa is a banking lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And the Director of Operations at the Ghana Gas, Engineer Dr. Kofilati, has been appointed as the new Chief Executive of the company. He took over from Engineer Ben Ashanti, who stepped down last week, having been in that position since January 2017. More in this report.
Joy Business understands that Engineer Dr. Kofilati's appointment took effect from last Friday, February 7, 2025. Engineer Dr. Lati has over 25 years of experience in the energy sector, especially when it comes to the downstream operations in the country. In his first management meeting, Dr. Lati stressed the need to explore avenues to use the gas facility to support government 24-hour economic program through agro-processing, transportation, construction, and manufacturing services. Dr. Lati underscored the need to operate and transport gas to customers in a safe and reliable manner in line with the vision of Ghana Gas. For some individuals, one of the major challenges the new chief executive has to deal with is how to improve supplies for power generation and improve the financial standing of the company so they can meet their financial obligations to Ghana National Petroleum Corporation as well as debt owed other players in the industry.
And that is a business desk report. Now, CalBank says it will collaborate with the insurance sector players to address challenges affecting insurance penetration in the country. Head of Digital and Inclusive Banking at CalBank, Martha Quay, says the bank will move to deepen its engagement with customers going forward. She spoke to Joy Business at the launch of the Be Insure initiative in partnership with Blue Space and MTN.
CalBank, as part of our strategy for the last 5 to 10 years, have focused on digital transformation. And digital transformation actually requires a lot of collaboration. And that is why it became very necessary for us to partner Blue Space, MTN, to bring this product to bear. The collaboration is important because as CalBank, we have a payment platform we do put out there to assist various companies or business sectors to process payments. And it's one of such solutions called CalPay, which is a payment gateway that we are using to partner with Blue Space to drive this insurance marketplace.
Martha Quay is head in charge of digital and inclusive banking at CalBank. The International Financial Corporation Regional Director for Central and Anglophone West Africa, Dr. Kalia Khalifa, has emphasized the importance of sustainable building practices in driving business growth and environmental conservation. Now, the regional board for the private sector arm of the World Bank disclosed this when she presented the prestigious ISC Edge Green Building Certification to Access Bank Ghana in Accra.
It's very good for the environment. Buildings that are sustainable, businesses that will continue to create jobs and do business. But also, when you are becoming more sustainable and EDGE certified, you're effectively lowering your expenses. And when you lower your expenses, that's good for your bottom line. So it's good for the environment and it's good for the bottom line. So overall, it's a plus. And any business that wants to consider doing these kinds of activities should immediately think of EDGE certification. EDGE certification basically means that the business is more sustainable. We have, as IFC, begun this EDGE program and all over the globe. In Ghana in particular, there are about 54 ongoing projects covering about 800,000 square meters, and therefore we hope to continue doing that kind of thing in Ghana.
International Finance Corporation Regional Director for Central and Anglophone West Africa, Dr. Dalia Khalifa. And that's all for business. Before we go, let's turn our attention to the stock market. If you hold the shares of MTN Ghana today, it was up by a peso to close at 2 Ghana cedis, 76 pesos. Some good news for shareholders of MTN Ghana. And that's all for business on Newsnight. It's back to you, Musbao, and we are talking about sports.
Yes. Very much so. Well, Kumasi Asante Kotoko Their interim management committee chairman, Nana Apinkra Akwesi Awa, has been speaking, and he is insisting that the club won't return to the Ghana Premier League until the Ghana Football Association addresses their security concerns. Now, at a meeting earlier today in Kumasi between the management of Kotoko and the leadership of the Ghana Football Association, he criticized the FA's response to recent violence, including a fan's death, and accused them of failing to secure safety at match venues. Well, my colleague Stephen Zando has been following this very story and has more.
At the meeting, the IMC chairman of Ashanti Kotoko, Nana Apinkra Akwesi Awa, the first told GACA that since they are the mother association for the clubs, they expected GACA to visit Kotoko even before the IGP and his team did. And for the GFA, he wasn't expecting much from them because the association has shown they don't value Ghana's two biggest clubs, Ashanti Kotoko and Accra Hearts of Oak. He, however, stressed Kotoko and Hearts of Oak will now force the GFA to respect them and that they won't be part of the Ghana Premier League until strict security measures are put in place to ensure fan safety at match venues. In an interesting turn of events, the IMC chairman of Kotoko, who was not happy, made it clear to the GFA officials that they don't want the chairperson of the Safety and Security Committee of the GFA, DCOP Liyadonko, to be part in any case involving Asante Kotoko since she has shown her biases towards the club. GFA Executive Council member Nana Odro Safo at the meeting revealed Keto Kweku has not been seen fronting engagement in the aftermath of Nana Pole's death because the GFA couple is unwell and currently not in the country.
With Love FM in Kumasi there. Well, MF, just a quick update on what's happening tonight in the Champions League. Is the knockout round playoffs already happening? It's Paris Saint-Germain and Brest. PSG leading by 2-0. But later at 8 p.m, big game, Manchester City taking on Real Madrid in that crucial playoff, first leg playoff at the Etihad. And of course, we've got live commentary on here 103.9 FM with the Joy Sports team there. Are you tipping Man City or Real Madrid?
Man City. Yeah, all the way.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes. I'll be tuning to hits this evening for live commentary. Now, let me take you to Parliament, and the minority have described as illegal the decision by the Roads and Highway Ministry to suspend the implementation of the National Roads Authority Act. Well, the act merged Ghana Highway Authority, the Department of Urban Roads, and the Department of Feeder Roads. But few weeks into its implementation, the new Roads and Highways Minister Gov't Abuja caused the suspension of the act last week, delivering an urgent statement on the floor of the House. Former chairman of the Roads and Transport Committee and MP for Achimswedro demanded urgent action from Parliament to remedy what he described as an illegal act.
2025, which was issued by the Ministry of Roads and Highways. And, Mr. Speaker, the subject is suspension of the implementation of the National Roads Authority Act 2024, Act 1118. Mr. Speaker, this is an act which was passed by this House in July 2024. Mr. Speaker, Article 93(2) makes it clear, and the authority or the legislative powers is vested in the hands of this House. Mr. Speaker, it is, and with the act, the best remedy or the procedure they have to take is to come to the House and make sure the proper thing is done.
Well, Roads and Highway Minister Gov't Abuja himself was on the floor and offered a rationale for his decision.
If I look around the room, I have worked on that bill more than anybody in this room to pass it, including himself. Mr. Speaker, this is the fact. The bill has been passed and assented to. Its implementation has generated significant unrest between the entities under the ministry, feeder roads, urban roads, and highways. I had the opportunity to meet at Deba with all the agencies. The conclusion is that we suspend the implementation and carry out further consultation with them with respect Mr. Speaker, for instance, they raised issue about who becomes the head of NRA. Currently, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, the director of Urban Roads is now the acting chief director. He still holds on to the position because he hasn't handed over to anybody as the substantive director. He has been suspended. It's just 2 weeks that you have been in there, a month that you have done this. I'm not saying we are replicating what you have done. Mr. Speaker, there's no ill motive with this. It's basically to make it work better for the people who the law has been made for. So I appreciate him raising the issue, but maybe he would have realized that in few weeks' time, I was going to engage the Committee of Road and Transport in Parliament if it's properly so formed.
That's the Roads and Highway Minister, Kwame Gov't Abuja there. And let me bring in Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent, Kweku Asante. What was the Speaker's direction on this matter, Kweku?
Well, the Speaker agreed with the minority on this, that the appropriate step to deal with an act of Parliament that has been passed, if there are challenges of implementation, is to come to Parliament. He has really directed the Minister to do the appropriate thing and report back to the House.
The maker of the statement, he has drawn our attention to an urgent matter. The urgent matter is that we pass a law. The ministry is come out with a statement, say it's suspending the implementation of the law. Now, luckily for us, the minister is available. The minister has not challenged that. He is explaining why the ministry is being forced to suspend the implementation of the law. The only thing that the maker of the statement says is that if you have that kind of challenge, come back to Parliament. We had a similar one with the road tolls, as the minister drew our attention to. We called on the then minister, in the same ministry, and it was ignored. That is a precedent that should not be followed. Because that time, those on my right were to my left, and it was raised by them, and we said the then minister was wrong.
Well, Kweku, what is it I'm also hearing the Speaker talk about when it comes to a prayer meeting for MPs in the House? What exactly is going on?
Emefa, do you believe in exorcism? Do you believe that people could be exorcised of bad and evil spirits?
But bad behavior, anyway, I really don't know. What exactly is the Speaker's view on this?
Parliament today meeting with clergy at the Speaker's annual breakfast meeting said perhaps the next prayer meeting should be held on the floor of Parliament, the chamber, to exorcise MPs of disorderly conduct. Listen to it.
Yes, and I grant them the permission that the next prayer meeting should be held on the floor of Parliament. There may be something inside there that has to be exorcised. We will not take it for granted. We'll get inside there and get it out. Where I sit, and these great men and women come to me in private, the way they present themselves is different from what they do inside. And so I keep on thinking, what is inside there? And the great men and women of the gospel will testify when they are with you in your church. And then you see them in the Parliament, and they are very different. What is inside there? If that is the culture of politics, then we really need God to descend and once again salvage us.
The matter has become a serious one, but what are the MPs saying? They need exorcism. They agree with the Speaker?
Well, a lot of them who spoke to me, not on the record, believe that the Speaker of Parliament did say this in a light note, but they say that if that is what it will take to ultimately rid the House of disorder, then so be it.
I was wondering why anytime I'm out of the seat,
there's trouble. Immediately I hand over this order. I'm never present when you have those things. I remember just last week when I was moving to my office, I handed over to my second deputy speaker. Immediately he sat and started. Members were on their feet singing and saying so many things. I was still at my lobby. I didn't know whether to rush back to come and take over. And that would not show good leadership. So I restrained myself and watched all that happen. Why? And sometimes when wise men speak and people don't listen, these are the consequences. There's good reason why the country differed from other countries and decided that the speaker must be, 1, not a member of parliament, 2, impartial, not neutral, impartial. So when you give a decision that people sitting on that chair can be partial, you've created disorder. I will be quoting decisions that I spoke against, and you people moved with the mob, and they became decisions of courts and rules in this house.
That's Speaker Alban Bagbing ending tonight's edition of News Science. Some of your messages that you sent in. Musa Batwa in Aswasi says His Excellency John Mahama is well within his mandate to fulfill his 100-day promises, and the opposition should hold off on their criticism and allow him to work. We have this one from Kotuka Courage in Anglonga. He says, I just want to use your platform to congratulate. Okay, he's congratulating a candidate, on winning the Council of State, election. And Senna says what the Chief of Staff did to revoke last-minute appointment by Akufo-Addo is a good move, he says. And Samin Kumasi says, is democracy really a curse to Africans? Just election of a member into the Council of State and it's 10 chaotic? He's wondering. And Elder from Sunyani says, in fact, to revoke employment of Ghanaians would have been a bad act on the side of the current government. However, in 2017, worse of this happened. And it's time for the gigs.
Hi, I'm
on Tuesday. What's up?
I'm good.
What are we doing tonight?
We are in the month of love, and we are having a very interesting conversation. Let me ask you, do you remember the era of call centers?
Hey! Yeah, bro.
So just imagine a spouse exactly waiting to have her husband call her. Tonight we want to have a conversation on how technology is redefining romance.
Is it making it better? I thought those days were better,
Are you sure?
You longed for it. This time we take it for granted. It's just there. You get the message anyway. Those days when you queue and you get it,
it becomes something that you cherish
a lot. Well, you want to stay for that evolution on Geek Squad. I am MFA Pau. Have a good evening.